Hopefully, this worked. Man, what a rough start, you guys. Yesterday, we did the show, no problem. Today, looks like we had some issues again. Same issues that we've been having before. We're starting the stream. Like I've said a few times, we have escalated this issue as high up as we can get it. Let me see if, there we go. All right, you guys, look at that. We thought we had started a successful show and we totally didn't. Everything on my end said that everything started perfectly until Rather told me, yeah, technical difficulties again. Looks like the YouTube end of things hasn't started. You guys, I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, I've got the Restream technical team working on this problem. It's an issue they can't resolve. It's not something I'm doing wrong, as I've figured out. We thought that we found like a band-aid way to start the shows and not to have this issue. We started yesterday's show, not a problem at all. And today it just gave us this issue again. So it was getting lewd. I am all good now. All right, good. You guys see me in the chat. I see you guys in the chat. So let's do this again from the beginning. Thank you guys so much for being here on another episode of Lube Reviews. Today we've got a killer show. It's the first Tuesday of the month, which is my favorite day of the month because that means Mr. Rather Be Squdding is here. We're gonna break down the month's news. We're gonna wait a couple minutes. I'm gonna say hello to everyone in the chat while everyone finds this new show. Let me go ahead and erase the old show while we're doing that. Let's see here. Where is the old show? Man, this is so disappointing. So disappointing that Restream is not working correctly. All right, let's see. Let me make sure that nobody did anything silly. Okay, no, it doesn't look like anybody tried to do anything silly with the channel. All right, let's see here. So let's go ahead and just copy this. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me. Again, if you haven't already, I want to say thank you for being here. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel. I promise we're going to get this issue resolved once and for all at some point. But I just hope it is soon because it has been a real pain in the butt, especially for you guys. I feel for my audience because every time I have a show or I share a link, it seems like every time I share it and I'm confident the show's gonna work, it doesn't. And then when I'm sure the show is not gonna work, it works. So I don't know. You tell me, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong, you guys? Delete this forever. All right. Totally understand that we could delete that forever. All right. So if you have already liked, shared, and subscribed to the show, please consider joining our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support and produce this show. That is very appreciated and goes a very long way. So with that out of the way, with that said, let's go ahead and turn down this music. There we go. Turn down this intro music and let's bring in our buddy, Mr. Rather Be Squdding. Rather, I'm going to be bringing you here in a second. Let's get to our two-panel guest screen. There it is, Rather. There's that wonderful face, man. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, take two. Working well now.
Yep. It seems like we've got it figured out. And look, I was bragging when we started the show. I was like, all right, yeah, little box is green. We're good. All right. It was such a good start to the show, too. Such a good start to the show. You guys should have been there.
Now we're practiced. It'll be even better.
Yeah, it'll be even better. So Rather, man, we've got a lot to catch up on. It's been a crazy month. Before we do, how are you, man? I know you're not as
Uh,
active on Twitter as much these days, and we haven't spoken really much this month at all. I kind of like saving our discussions for this show because I kind of like going into it not knowing what you're thinking.
Yeah, it's nice to have kind of a fresh, real take with you here on the air. I been keeping abreast. It's been an interesting month. This last week in particular has just been kind of crazy. But yeah, aside from that, I've just been living my life out here. I've been working on a little side project, talking about sensor for detecting UAP. I have gotten this is a little tease here, but I've got some
It
interesting
looks
things coming up on my own channel.
it looks like a prototype. It looks like you got a prototype there.
It's a prototype, and I've got
Are
schematics and parts list available soon. So,
well,
keep tuned.
I'd rather you might. I don't know. I feel like Apple might have beaten you to the punch. Can you imagine if that new Apple, what are they calling it again?
Yeah, the Vision
The
Pro. Well, this
Vision
cost
Pro.
about, I don't know, maybe $20. The Vision Pro costs about $3,500. So there's something
$3,500.
to this.
Dude, after taxes, that's a $4,000 set of goggles. Uh, but what I was gonna say is, I wonder. This doesn't seem like something Apple would do, but if you could open source those goggles and turn them into a UAP collection device, that might be something, either that or an app that could be written for that. I wonder if you could use it to gaze at the star systems, kind of like you can with how you can do that with your
Oh, yeah,
iPhone.
that's a great idea. Yeah. AR
Like
star map. Yeah,
there's some
interesting.
interesting applications possibly for this Apple Vision Google Wear thing. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
for some reason I can't remember the name of it. It's just doesn't. I don't know. Apple Vision, is that what it's called?
yeah, the Vision Pro, I believe.
Vision
Yeah,
Pro.
the augmented reality, it's very interesting. I think we've just kind of scratched the surface, but yeah, how awesome would it be if they were detecting IR and UV rays, and when something anomalous happens, it
Yeah.
kind of overlaid something in your vision.
Or if you could,
This is just the
tap
beginning.
the side and tap into that secret frequency that Lou Elizondo refuses to tell anybody about.
The single sensor to
We that
find them
single
all.
sensor. Maybe we can just pop it on the Google, the Apple Vision. But I mean, yeah, I kind of when I watched the presentation of it yesterday, I was like, I want one. I want one. I want one. That's wild, right? And you know that it's going to be an elegant design, and you know that it's going to deliver on what they're telling you it does. So this idea that you can blow up a movie to 100-foot screen and then put that 100-foot screen on the surface of the moon, that is crazy. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that it's not coming out right away. They give us about a year to save up for it. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to see what it's all about. Yeah, it is crazy expensive, but I'm excited.
I like it.
I embrace the AR revolution, and I hope that it is that a revolution and not the final death throes of
Look,
the field.
if Apple's tossing their hand in it, I feel like it's going one way or the other. It's going to be. It look. I mean, can you imagine those in hospitals for doctors that are doing surgeries?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it seems like they're really kind of going for too. Is
You
that the
know,
professional kind of
yeah.
real?
Or learning how to do surgery through augmented reality. As a
Yeah, no,
student, like, oh my God, the application. Anyway, we could go on forever, but we got a $10 donation from James Craig that says, let the truth come out, Lewin, rather. Don't hold back today. Thank you so much for the donation. Want to say what's up to East Coast Tina over here on the Twitch side of things. Guys, do me a favor, just because YouTube has been crazy. I'm not going to ask you. This is not a shameless plug. I'm genuinely saying, if YouTube shuts down this channel because of the fake copyright strikes that we've been getting on the show, and the fact that it's so difficult to start the show through the Restream software, and the conversations I've been having with the YouTube people, I don't think they understand what's happening. Like, if this channel disappears because of these fake strikes, all I'm saying is you're going to want to go over to Twitch, subscribe there, because Twitch protects the creator more than these bogus claims that people could just put on anything and hide a video for 2 weeks. And it was crazy. We got 3 copyright strikes from one person. We won the copyright strike on the main video, but because of our trouble to start the show, the other 2 videos that have copyright strikes, I deleted and didn't fight. So therefore, those copyright strikes are still on the channel. And they don't understand. Like, it's a whole confusing thing that's really difficult to explain. I'm not going to sit here and bore everyone, but the point is, go to the Twitch channel. The link is in the description below. Subscribe on the Twitch side, just in case. All right. So that's all out of the way. I guess rather, let's start, I think, with the earliest thing I think that happened in the last month. It's probably not the earliest thing. If there's anything else that you sort of think of that happened before this, let me know and we could definitely chat about it. But the first thing I want to talk about with you is the Corbell flare fiasco and the doubling
Almost forgot
down.
about that.
It feels like a decade ago. The
Yeah.
NASA UAP panel feels like it happened years ago at this point with everything that's been happening. And I think this time last year, we would have been so excited about all of these things. And now it's been a year and we have a lot of different perspectives on this whole narrative. And we're seeing the same red flags in these new stories as we saw in the previous iteration of this whole thing. So I guess let's start with Corbell. Let's start there. I also wanted to get your thoughts on him not answering Eric Weinstein's request to have a discussion either via a private dinner or via an interview on Rogan, with Rogan being the neutral person interviewing both between him and Lazar. So I don't know, wherever you want to start between one of those 2 Corbell stories.
Well, yeah, I guess kind of the main thing on the flares with Corbell is that he was investigating this for 2 years,
2
right? A
years.
whole 2 years,
5
and
investigators, I believe. There was Christopher Sharp, there was Corbell, Knapp, there was a female journalist, I'm forgetting her name, and then an additional journalist that's I'm sorry, I don't have this information right off the top of my head, but there was 5 journalists. 5.
and, and so I guess what they did is that they confirmed that these people that they were talking to were actually military people, and that's
Yeah.
probably true. But what they didn't do is do any kind of research to trying to see if there could be a prosaic explanation for this stuff. And that it wasn't even 24 hours, but overnight after they posted this, John Greenwald with the Black Vault found government, already public information about military exercises that were going on that night. And they even have pictures of them dropping 5 flares that Mick West goes and looks at the screenshots, and it turns out it's a perfect match for what they're claiming is a, pyramid shaped UAP craft.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting story. These military people, they probably did see something and thought it was something weird and reported it. But I mean, just because something saw someone weird and reported it and it's a military person doesn't mean that it's revolutionary. You have to look at these things and try to be honest about it, try to figure out what's actually behind it. And they just didn't do that. They just, tried to play it up as a, ET craft, and it kind of came crashing down on them, at least in my opinion.
Well, I mean, of course, in your opinion, but do you think it changed the hardcore? Like, for obviously, it didn't change Joe Murgia's mind. It didn't change Danny Silva's opinion or make him question the journalistic tactics of George Knapp and all of these other people. At the end of the day,
No,
George Knapp is the certified journalist. This is his story on his podcast that he's putting out, and he's essentially getting clicks and revenue from those clicks. And
well,
he purposefully omits the fact that there's a huge military exercise happening the exact same night, and there's video and pictures and news stories about this exercise because they wanted to warn the people in the area before it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head there, is that it didn't convince anyone. Even, the most ardent believers were kinda like, "Hey, this is obviously flares." But I think it was still a victory for Corbell and Knapp because like you said, they got a lot of clicks, they probably made some money, they increased their profile in the national media, it's I don't think they have any regrets about how it went.
I'm sure they will. Clearly, they don't, right? Because they look at the actions. Look at the
Yeah.
actions, the doubling down, the refusal to, even when the idea of the military exercise being done the same night, Corbell's rebuttal to that immediately is like, okay, well, that's something we have to confirm. Guy, it's been confirmed. It's a
Yeah.
confirmed thing. Why are you saying that? You know it's confirmed. You know what the military put out there. I mean, for fuck's sake, what John Greenwald and Mick West have done to this in a matter of what, 4 hours this thing was debunked?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
It's beyond ridiculous. It's dishonest.
I mean, it exposes what they're really all about, and that is, trying to make sensational stories to get clicks, right? I mean, there's
Right.
really no two ways about it
It's
anymore. And
clickbait.
yeah, and you look at that, and then you see what he's saying about this thing where you have the evidence right in front of your eyes, and it should make you kind of think about what they're claiming about things where the evidence isn't right before your eyes, right? It's secret evidence,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious what they're all about, and if you're still believing them and still putting your stock in Knapp and Corbell about Lazar and other things, you really, really want to believe.
Well, what's hilarious is Corbell has already commented on this whole reverse engineered thing from David Grush, and he's saying that, oh, just wait, we'll give our opinions on this in a couple days once everything settles. And then Joe Mergia, this schmuck, is saying that he met him at a Star Trek convention a year ago and was giving them this story while he was employed by the federal government. And there's also the guys from the I Believe in Humans podcast who just started doing shows again. They've got a picture sitting down at Lua Lozando's house, and with the caption, some, I'm paraphrasing here, something along the lines of, "This story sounds familiar," as in the David Grush, whole reverse engineering program. So again, like, this is a story that's been behind the scenes, told to select people. I never heard of this story. I never heard of David Grush. I guess I wasn't trusted like that. But other people were. I'm wondering if, because I know McGowan, we're going to have McGowan on the show here in a couple of days. I was trying to get him on today because of the three, like, I would love to get the three of us on again. But he's doing the whole Disney World thing. But anyway, um, like, so I'm like, this story, you know is supposed to be classified, is supposed to only have been told to the IG and lawmakers, but now we're learning that no, he was telling this to film producers 2 years ago in his house. Like
It's so weird. I mean, there are a lot of red flags with this whole story and how it came out and everything. But I do want to say it is kind of cool, right? Like at least here we have this guy Gorsh, whoever I'm trying
well,
to
wait, wait,
mispronounce
well,
his name.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Okay,
We're not
okay,
on
well, we'll
Grush
save
yet,
that.
but
But
we'll save it. We'll save it because I agree with you. I think it is cool. It's not cool, but it's not evidence. But
well,
we'll get
and it's
into it.
yeah, yeah. Instead of the evidence, it's wait some more. Just
Yeah.
wait a little longer.
So, okay. So how many do you think, how many more of these does Corbell and Knapp have before people are like, okay, that's fucking enough? Like, that's enough. Like, at what point are people going to raise their standard of evidence? Or do you think this is just a gravy train no matter what you say or what you do? Just as long as you speak to the belief system, people are going to eat it up. People are going to pay for it. People are going to go watch it at conventions. People are going to pay for movies because this story, this whole flare palm story, it adds more stigma. It knocks the progress of this back 4 steps. Forget about taking 1 step backward and 1 step forward, 2 back. This is 1 forward, 4 back. It's twice as bad. Um, what do you think, man? Like, do you think people are eventually going to hit a wall with this kind of information and say, okay, fucking enough? Like, is there ever going to be a point where Murgia and Silva are like, I can't trust these guys anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the true believers because they seem to be in with all the right people, right? And gosh, as far as I do think it detracts from everything, putting out this obviously bogus stuff. But man, one of the more interesting things about the Flair story and this recent whistleblower story is just how willing media is to repost, copy and paste stories and repost it as just get the because it's an interesting story. People are going to click on it, and they
Yeah.
don't do any due diligence to
Well, I
fact check
mean,
it or see if it's true or not. So I think they're going to continue to post this stuff. That he has good relationships, obviously, with mainstream media, and he can get picked up. And I think that those, they're getting clicks. It's kind of everyone involved. It's kind of working out to their benefit. So I
well,
don't see it stopping.
I mean, he did a media tour. Corbell did, which points people to the podcast. It points people to the movies. It points people to the revenue stream, and that then leads next into like, okay, so how do we kill the biggest revenue stream for Jeremy Corbell? And of course, we did our video a couple of months back, almost at this point, with the whole let's get Bob Lazar to testify before Congress, and also let's get that idea of Weinstein and Lazar to sit down and have a conversation and once and for all determine, okay, is Bob Lazar who he says he is? Does he have the technical capability and know how to answer actual physics questions? Um, so, I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think about that? I mean, do you think we're ever going to get an answer on that, or is it just ignore and move on?
Yeah, I think it's just ignore and move on. And I don't think there's any stopping Corbell. Corbell is so kind of insidious because he is kind of right on the line of kind of being believable, kind of not being believable. Like we're not like up in arms about the Gaia people talking about the secret police force because it's just
Hmm.
so out there, But Corbell is kind of
Well,
insidious because he yeah I guess yeah I don't know how he kind of maintains his credibility kind of with putting out this weird factually incorrect information after time and time again.
well, I wonder if it upsets people because you mentioned Gaia, right? Which is probably the most egregious media entity other than like Third Phase of Moon and Stephen Greer as far as maximum bullshit and lies. But when you've listened to the deposition of people like Corey Good, and you get an idea of how much Gaia's stock has risen with the direct correlation of the crazier the story gets and the more it's espoused as fact, as a real thing, the more views it gets, and it actually it it made the network an insane amount of like north of 20, 30, 40 million dollars kind of profit in the $100 million range, if I'm not mistaken, like making a killing. And I think, I was kind of having this discussion with Erica Lukes, like to me it's just as aggressive and almost as destructive as like a Scientology. But I think Scientology even amps it up even more in that they pretty much hold you prisoner in facilities sometimes and make you work a job that basically just pays for books, and they keep you in this site like it's a genuine cult. Whereas UFOs, it's kind of like, well, nobody's keeping you here against your will. Like, people are doing this because they want to, because it makes them feel good, because it encourages their belief systems. But there is an
And it
extreme to it.
well, and it's beyond clear that the more sensationalist you get with your program, the more money you're going to make, and better receptive it's going to be. And there's no downside. There's no penalty for doing that.
Right. There's no pay, like it's look at Billy what the hell's his name?
But Meyer, Matt,
No,
or
not Billy Meyer.
oh,
Is it Billy Carson? The guy that's on Jimmy Church all the time?
yeah,
The
yeah, yes,
forbidden knowledge
the
guy?
building out, yeah, yeah.
You know, who does like excursions to Egypt? Like that guy's been arrested for legitimate fraud. Like arrested. And here he is, his comeback is profitable. And like
Well, he
here
wears a
we
suit. He looks credible.
right, like he looks credible. I mean, but does he? I mean, have you
Does
seen
he?
him
Yeah, yeah.
on those UFO posters and conference announcements? I don't, dude. He looks like a scam artist, right? To me, like right from the, and then you hear him talk, and you're like, okay, this is definitely a scam. I just, for me, it almost feels wrong if somebody's not out there going, okay, don't listen to these guys. Like, be
What?
careful, or at
Yeah,
least be careful.
yeah, and I mean, I guess kind of what's frustrating to me is that I guess before 2017, that's kind of how I viewed the entire UFO industry was kind of a weird sideshow circus thing with a bunch
Mm,
of weird stuff, entertainment that no one should be taking seriously,
yeah.
and it kind of did change, but now it does kind of start to seem like all the main people are just kind of in that sideshow trying to take advantage and trying to make money and trying to say the craziest thing than there's someone else to
Well,
get clicks and eyeballs.
the perfect example is standforbetter.org, a political action committee that started as a Democratic fundraising entity. And if you go to their YouTube page, they made really crappy Democratic leaning, supposedly funny videos that didn't get any views and nobody was watching it. And then they started inching into this UFO conversation. And now they've got people like Kirsten Gillibrand and, you know, all sorts of folks on that show. And the language coming out of that host, especially the debunker language, like is straight out of a cultist handbook or a propaganda handbook. It's pretty wild, and
Yeah, I
what
hope Matt Ford has some friends and some people checking up on him because it does seem like he's totally gone off the deep end. It's crazy, and I mean, how like they're just so unlikable and antagonistic, and just like trying to just be a jerk to people who are legitimately trying to figure this out. And it's kind of a shame because I want to be applauding the NASA stuff. Some of this stuff was really cool, but when you have the big believers who are just so unlikable and so antagonistic, you want to be like, oh, I want to be against ET, but
well, I
I
mean,
mean, it's a weird dynamic.
we had Matt Ford, and I think we talked about it last time you were here. He made a video a few days before the UAP congressional hearing with the 3 senators that showed up, basically saying, do the right thing, Kirkpatrick, because if you don't, we're watching,
I'll
like,
I'll
and,
harass the hell out of you.
you're going to harass the hell. And he's also encouraging other people to harass Dr. Kirkpatrick. And it's not like, I think about this all the time because technically speaking, am I harassing Jeremy Corbell? I mean, like I ask him almost every day, hey, when are you going to answer, Eric Weinstein? But it never goes to a point where I'm doxing his family or I'm insulting who they are or making fun of their gender or what they look like or their sexual orientation. I never, ever, ever, ever go there. But I think there is a level of like, hey, we got to hold your feet to the fire because you're making absolutely batshit crazy claims. And if you're just going to keep making these claims and churning out this revenue stream, I'm going to keep reminding people every single day that you are a scam artist. And I'm going to do it by pointing out the discrepancies in the things that you say and the things that you won't answer versus the things that you do answer or comment on. Like, he's been dead silent. George Knapp, the only response we've gotten is an iceberg shaped like a dick from George Knapp in response to John Greenwald going, are you guys going to answer this request from Eric Weinstein? Like, what's the deal? Everyone knows you've seen it. And now we got the flares and everybody's screaming at them like, what's going on? Like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? You're adding so much stigma to this conversation. You're turning flares into a craft. You said that. Stop walking back on that. Like, well, I never said it was a craft. Yeah, you fucking did. You said it multiple times, Mr. Corbell.
Yeah, and you know, he likes to talk about how everyone's sending him evidence, how he's sitting on all this other evidence, you know. So this is like the best that he has, right?
This is the best that he has. Or it's not. I don't think it is. Like, I don't think it is. And the thing is that, you know, that this is, it's like he releases something. It's I don't think there's a pattern, or now that he's got a podcast, I feel like he has to put something out every week now that's going to be bigger and greater than the last thing. So maybe he's just got an infinite stockpile of shitty garbage footage. He probably does, because he's Jeremy Corbell and people probably send him their cell phone footage all the time, and he takes it and he's like, oh, you're in the army too, cool, well, this is going to be great in a couple years. I could just pitch this as a craft in the sky witnessed by a military person, and therefore it's credible. I don't know, man. It's
yeah, I think you do know.
I know. Like I do. I do know, but what I don't know is that, you know, I just don't know why people continue to support this shit. Like, why news outlets aren't the only news outlet that asks that question, in, you know, besides, of course, like the Mick West, the Green Street, and the Greenwald, was Gadi Schwartz from NBC. He was like the only person who's like, hey, by the way, that night there was a training exercise. And did he use the Mick West comparison with matching the flares? I don't think that was out for them to use in that piece, was it?
Yeah, I don't remember that, but
yeah.
Hey, I mean, it's
yeah,
it
feels
what
like
are the
10 years
incentives?
ago.
The incentives are, you know, they're going to get some clicks, they're going to get some eyeballs on it. You know, it's kind of a sad state of media these days.
It really is, man. Like, the thing, and I saw this, you know, over a year ago, because we would watch the media and we would say things like, damn, dude, they got that so wrong. I can't imagine what else they're getting wrong on this level. And it's got to be everything. Like,
yeah.
everything they just, like you said, they see it, they ask very surface level questions about it and go, should we run it? And the answer is always, hell yeah. It's sexy as hell. Look at this picture, right? At first glance, and when you put it on a TV screen with a whole bunch of things scrolling and TikToks and then you know, 14 talking heads, it's like, well, maybe this is amazing. Maybe this is significant. And it's not. And so that kind of leads into the next part of our conversation, which is, and we didn't even talk about the Gary Nolan SALT conference. Like, god damn, that feels like a year ago. This has been a crazy month. Quickly, what is your opinion on the Gary Nolan SALT conference?
I think Gary Nolan is really likes to. He's a true believer, and that shows. And he's a true believer without any evidence.
That's a great summation. I like that. But do you think? I mean, do you see? I'm curious if you see it. The things he says in front of a crowd that isn't familiar with the ins and outs of the UAP discussion. He's a lot more bold in the claims that he makes. He said he's 100% sure that the United States has recovered craft, even though he's never seen it. And then that also, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's thinking of David Grush when he says things like that. But then you get him in a Twitter feed or thread, or you get him in front of a different person who knows a little more, and the crowd that's watching knows a little more. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that was just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I'll give Nolan a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. I think that he's probably speaking very emotionally at the SALT conference. And I think that he really does believe that this is true 100%. I think that's what he believes. And then I think that when he then realizes that, oh, I maybe overspoke. That really isn't technically true. Let me correct it. I can kind of I can see how that would happen. Um, I'm not too up in you know disrepair about what Gary Nolan did there. But I think that it is a good point that you put out, is that he very does, he gets ahead of himself quite often and has to walk it back. So don't get too excited when he says something outlandish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we could go on for a while about that conference. I mean, I'm done giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's so pompous and so arrogant with his
Yeah,
belief, and the fact that
they're
that
so
belief,
unlikable. It makes you
they're
want to be
so
against what he
unlikable.
wants,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
especially
want ET too. The truth
no,
is.
of course, so do I. But it's like, remember, he blocked us without ever once talking to us. That was more than a year ago that happened because he watches this show. He watches this show. Like he does. He was watching it
What?
live the other night when I was talking about the SALT conference and this whole thing. He blocked me on my backup account, and then I did the show and then unblocked me after I gave him shit for blocking me because he wasn't answering my questions. He just puts a link to a paper which then he deleted. And then I read the paper and it's supposed to be this, peer-reviewed thing, and it's got nothing to do with the discussion at hand. Nothing. Zero. Schizophrenics and adults,
Well,
learning
yeah,
disabilities.
yeah, someone, I saw this on Twitter recently, and it kind of touched to me, because it's something that I always think is that if you're like Gary Nolan and you have an experience as a kid, how are you so convinced that that's a real experience, not something psychological? Especially when you do research and you find out that a lot of people who have these experiences have same kind of brain structures as schizophrenics. Might you at least entertain the possibility that your mind was playing tricks on you? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
and well, my question to him was, well, I saw a craft when I was 13 years old. Are you saying I'm a schizophrenic or someone who has adult learning disabilities? Is that what you're saying here?
no, you're
Like,
special, Lou.
or am I special? Yeah, am
Yeah.
I special because I got to see it? Like, why is it that the actor guy can take his very visceral experience and put it off to the side and not put that on the table as proof, but the Stanford professor can't? He can't. He's 100%, and he has zero scientific evidence. So his
Yeah.
belief system is swaying his result.
Well, I think that's common with a lot of smart people, is that they get to be a little bit arrogant because they are smart and they,
Right.
usually are right. So they trust themselves maybe more than they should.
All right, moving on. NASA UAP panel. Um, there's a lot of stuff that happened in this. Obviously, it was a 3-hour discussion. We can't go over the entire thing. Where was it? Anyway, I had it in here somewhere. But I'll keep this up because I wanted to play this anyway because I didn't get to play it the other night. But thankfully, I didn't have to re-edit or do it myself, and this account provided a clean version of these harassment stories from the panelists. But before we get to that, I wanted to just pick your brain. What were your thoughts walking away from that 3-hour discussion?
I thought it was cool. I thought it
Yeah.
was, a group of people who had legitimate scientific interest into this, the right group of people. And I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Looking at interstellar objects, trying to detect anomalies, and the discussions around that. Should they be looking for stuff that Arrow is kind of telling them what the general structure of these UAP is? Should they be doing that, or should
Mm.
they be trying to define what's normal and then do anomaly detection based off that? A lot of interesting stuff there. A lot of stuff too about just the state of the UFO union. We haven't found anything that is physics defying, anything that's truly crazy. We know that there's about 3 to 5% of the aero reports are anomalous, and what anomalous means, isn't doing something crazy, but doing something that's not readily understood. It sounds like a lot of these are probably weird, video ghosting and weird artifacts. They talked a lot about the challenges. One of the interesting things I thought was they talked about, the DoD sensors versus IC sensors, and that the DoD sensors are kind of single purpose to find the enemy. So most of these things coming through Arrow are DoD sensors, which are inherently challenging. So there's a lot of really interesting, good stuff for people that are, really interested in the scientific study of UAP.
Yeah, well, I walked away kind of going, "Oh, that's what science is supposed to sound like."
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's exactly what a group of scientists looking at an unknown phenomenon would say. And the thing that I loved about it is that it was a wide range of people, um with a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different expertises. And it seems like most of them were on the same page of, okay, like it's gotten to the point where we have to talk about this and we have to see if we can get to a resolution on not what just people are seeing now. Now we're getting the reports from the pilots. But the thing is that, especially with Dr. Kirkpatrick there and him, and all of these panelists have seen the same information that Kirkpatrick has seen. They the one thing that I was so relieved by was the Go Fast video. And the idea that for years, people have been giving Mick West, including me, so much shit about how could that be moving slow. Listen to what the pilots are saying. Does the recording not count for anything? Turns out he was right. And that the NASA scientists did the trigonometry and figured out that the object is moving 40 miles an hour. Now, I say that's the same speed as a bird. So people pointed out, I said osprey is a type of bird and they can go up to 80 miles per hour when diving for their prey. But I'm pretty sure they could cruise at around 40. And people say, well, there's no wings. Well, maybe that instrument isn't dialed in to that area to give you the definition of wings, and it's coming up as a blurb. And those are the things that, like, when they showed that new UAP footage of the three dots and how the pilots couldn't catch up to them, and then you do all the data digging and you figure out that those are three planes landing at an airport very far away, and that the camera that's mounted to the plane that's capturing this, what seems like crazy stuff, and even the pilot was fooled by it, the camera casing was loose. And it gave it a jittering effect that gave the illusion that these things are moving in a weird way. And so I think for me, that was a huge relief because finally, we don't have to rely on just a video game programmer. Now you can put, you can't argue with a panel of scientists. And I've said this a couple of streams ago. We were begging for real scientists to come into this conversation and take it seriously. And here they are. They're here. And at surface level, so far, what they've seen, they're not impressed, is what I kind of took away. Am I wrong by saying that?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. I don't think that anyone there really thinks that there's necessarily anything that crazy to be discovered. But I think they all recognize the importance of having the infrastructure there to be able to detect something should something happen, right? So I think that
Right.
that's kind of the interesting thing. I don't think that they're. I think they have genuine interest here, and I think that they want to, look and discover what's happening in our atmosphere to, one, be prepared and, see if there is anything interesting there. If there is something interesting there, they'd all be, they'd love it. I like one of the questions was they were talking about, people think that NASA is being secretive and hiding stuff. And I loved I forget whose answer it was. maybe it was David Spergel, but talking about how scientists are rebellious. They don't like authority, and if you tell them, hide something or keep something secret, that they're not going to do that.
They're
So,
not going to do that.
there's
Yeah.
these people are going to tell us the truth. They're going to be transparent, and whatever they find, we're going to know. So it's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is here. Like, look at this. Look at this stage. You've got a NASA logo stamped there, and they're talking about UFOs.
Oh, but that analysis was just done by some guy, Lou, some guy on a panel.
It's wild to me. But here's the thing, right? So now we've got all of these wonderful minds actually genuinely looking at this. To me, I don't think that they're that impressed as of yet. I think a lot of them are holding out for something a little more substantial. I don't think that they've tossed it out like, say, maybe I have, you know. But I think that they're like, okay, well, if this is the best you got, we need more.
Well,
And
yeah, and I think
also,
it's kind of
like, I think they underlined, and we'll play this video here a second. I'll let you say what you're going to say, but they also underlined, for me, that was very important, is witness testimony, no matter how credible or how experienced, cannot be the only thing that is relied upon to determine whether or not this is exceptional.
yeah. And I'll just add that they weren't really tasked with finding out what was behind UAP. Their
Right.
task was to figure out how to advise NASA to set up a system so that they can collect data and then be able to proactively answer this stuff going forward. So I think that there's and to do that, they looked at the historical data and kind of see what was out there and what they could do. But they weren't trying to explain everything. They're kind of trying to figure out how they can have a better handle on this issue, which I think they're all very committed to, and I think they're all capable of doing so.
Well, I think they're committed to it, but I also think that they're going to have only a certain bandwidth for it. And my fear is that here we are. We've got the opportunity of a lifetime, and the thing that a lot of them are saying on this stage is the amount of harassment that they've received. From the same people that were harassing you and me.
Yeah,
And to me, that is what's creating the stigma. That's what's going to ruin this whole thing for everyone. Because if Susan Goff and these different panelists are getting outed because Milk Fart and Sawan want to find them on LinkedIn, email them, call them, leave them threatening messages, to a point where they're calling NASA security. Like, NASA security is involved now. Like, I think if anything kills this, it's going to be that.
Yeah, and I mean, so the milk fart, those weirdos, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg of this harassment
Yeah,
stuff. But I think
right.
it goes much deeper. Like that was a big takeaway of this, is how the NASA scientists, everyone was complaining about how they're being harassed, and the first thing most of the believers do, after that, was post about how, oh, this Sempner guy who did the analysis is, just some guy. His analysis isn't, it's not NASA. It's not NASA. And,
Right.
Just trying to diminish these people and make fun of, make fun and harass Mick West, which is
Right.
what Lou Elizondo did with Faceless Bureaucrat, and then when, you kind of call them out on that, they say, oh no, NASA, they were talking about the scientific community who was harassing them, which is 100% false. And the
False.
media update after this, they ask a question about this, and they talk about how they were being harassed and the ridiculous comments that were happening on the live stream during their presentation, talking about the Go Fast analysis. Like, that's what they're being harassed about. And if a lot people just are really trying to turn a blind eye to that. It's ridiculous.
Let's hear it from them, shall we?
It's disheartening to note that several of them have been subjected to online abuse due to their decision to participate on this panel. And NASA's security team is actively addressing this issue. We at NASA are acutely aware of the considerable public interest in UAP. However, it's critical to understand that any form of harassment towards our panelists only serves to detract from the scientific process, which requires an environment of respect and openness. Now, every member of our team is a recognized authority in their respective field, and they have our unequivocal support. NASA stands in solidarity with them, advocating for a respectful discourse that befits their expertise and the significance of their work. Thanks.
Before I begin, though, I really do want to double down on Dan's words. It is really disheartening to hear of the harassment that our panelists have faced online, all because they're studying this topic. NASA stands behind our panelists, and we do not tolerate abuse. Harassment only leads to further stigmatization of the UAP field, significantly hindering the scientific progress and discouraging others to study this important subject matter. Your harassment also obstructs the public's right to knowledge.
My team and I have also been subject to lots of harassment, especially coming out of my last hearing, because people don't understand the scientific method and why we have to do the things we have to do, right? And because we can't just come out and say, you know, the greatest thing that could happen to me is I could come out and say, hey, I know where all these things are. Here you go. Right? But I don't. Right? And it's going to take us time to research all of that. People want answers now, and so they're actually feeding the stigma by exhibiting that kind of behavior to all of us. Right? That is a bad thing. Where can NASA help? I made that recommendation on NASA should lead the scientific discourse. We need to elevate this conversation. We need to have this conversation in an open environment like this where we aren't going to get harassed.
Anti-Semitic alt-right bigots like Tupacabra, Full Stack Logan, Hey Ocean, Beverly Holmes, and Official Tiff are not part of the UFO community. They are bugs that crawled in through the floorboards. Same for disinfo pieces of shit like Lou Angeles, The Black Vault, and Middle of Mayhem.
These roaches need to be exterminated.
Oh yes, and that is well underway. Trust.
I mean, if we're getting this, if I'm getting death threats like this, I can't imagine what a Kirkpatrick's getting after a Matt Ford not incentivized, but what's the word I'm looking for? Encourages? Incites.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. He incites the extremists to do stuff like this. And that's where this feels like a cult. That's where this starts wandering into the danger zone. The good old Kenny Loggins song. But it's not fun, this version of the song.
Well, I mean, that's why people don't want to get involved.
Right. And they're telling you that. Like that's what they just said. 4 different panelists, including Kirkpatrick. And the thing about Kirkpatrick, he looks like, I don't know, just at surface level, he looks like a pretty cool dude to hang out with. I have a feeling he's not a closed-minded individual. The way he dresses, the way he carries himself, the vibe I get from him when he speaks, he's not a closed-minded guy. At least that's, again, my surface level opinion of him. I would love to pick his brain. I wonder if he knows where these harassers gather. I wonder if he knows who leads them. And I'd love to get his opinion on this. I'm dying to know what happens with the NASA security team, and what I'm sure we'll never find out. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall to know what they're organizing and what they might be doing to curb these people, or at least get somebody to watch them, because they've got what seems like
it's obvious where it's coming from, right? It's the Richard Butts, the Lou Elizondos, who have been telling us that this guy should be fired for the last
2 years,
6 months, or however however long he's
almost
been in
2
charge.
years, almost 2 years. I mean, this has been Gary Reed and Kirkpatrick are the guys that they've been talking about, that they haven't named by name, because they never name by name. They leave their minions to name the names. They send text messages like, man, I'm really sick of these 5 guys. And then
They've sent tweets. I know Richard Butt has that specifically talks about Kirkpatrick. And saying that he should be fired. So they do name names sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but not the Lou Elizondo, not the Cahill, not the Christopher Mellons. Even unless they're asked like directly. I remember somebody did ask their opinion on Lou. They asked Lou Elizondo his opinion on Kirkpatrick, basically, saying, "Oh, is this guy the one? Like, can we trust this guy?" And Elizondo softly said, "No, you can't. You can't trust this guy." And it's like he's been setting up this table for a long time so that when they do come out, people are already ready to go. They've got the ammunition they need, and then they've got the fake ammunition that they use on everybody else just to drive people cuckoo. The constant, and I mean, genuine harassment. This isn't like, again, this isn't me, bothering Jeremy Corbell when he's not answering the questions that are legitimate questions that should be answered. This is different.
I'm sure we don't even know the beginning or the end of it. I'm sure that there's people that are contacting the DOD. The people contacting middle of Mayhem, Stephen and Greenstreet's employers. That's a tactic that they love to do is find you who employs you and write to them. And that's why one of the reasons why I tried to be anonymous, because they are that's their MO is harass people.
Yeah. Well, this was an interesting. I thought I retweeted this and said this is one of the most important threads in the UFO discussion that I've seen in a long time. And it was sent out by Caitlin Johnstone, and she highlights Stephen Greenstreet's work here. And I think it was perfection. And it says UFO enthusiasts hate this guy because he's been arguing fairly solidly, from what I've seen, that the groundwork for the UFO narrative, which entered the mainstream media in 2017, was built on journalistic malpractice and negligence, obfuscation, omission, and outright lies. Leslie Kane, the journalist behind the 2017 New York Times report, which changed the mainstream narrative about UFOs, admitted she omitted the crackpot ghost and werewolves nature of the Pentagon's ATIP program in order to get the credibility for the subject. Quote, to get credibility for the subject. Both Keane and Ralph Blumenthal, who was also involved in the 2017 entry of UFOs into the mainstream narrative, are involved in the latest UFO story about non-human aircraft and alien bodies being hidden from the public. Greenstreet's whole documentary about the current UFO narrative is worth watching if you're interested in this sort of thing. Here's a long and copiously sourced article Greenstreet put out a few months back. Seriously, watch the part of the video I set this YouTube link to. Keane literally admits she had an, quote, angle in her 2017 New York Times reporting to legitimize the UFO narrative, so she simply left out key facts that would have made it look less credible. I want to believe that there are ETs zipping around in our skies as much as anyone. Boy, where have we heard that? But this new UFO narrative has its basis in journalistic malpractice and the professional liars of the U.S. intelligence cartel, just in time for the U.S. to start waging a new Cold War on two fronts. Come on! Absolutely 100% nails it. And then somebody says, come on, Playboy works for Murdoch Publications. Give me a break. And she wrote back, attacking the source instead of the evidence is what people do when they can't attack the evidence. Real quickly, I want to go to Stephen Greenstreet's IMDb because I'm not sure a lot of people know this about Stephen Greenstreet. And I don't think I've been meaning to bring this up for a while, but there hasn't just been a good time to sort of just put my defense out there of this guy. You go to his IMDb, and a lot of people don't know this, but he did a film in 2010, okay? Way before any of this sort of woke movement ever came to fruition within America. The Mormon Proposition is the name of the film. He's the producer and director of this film, or not the director. Well, he's co-director. This film is all about a proposition that would have basically outlawed any gay relationships, let alone gay marriage, within the state of Utah. He wrote a film in defense of destroying this proposition. So for anyone to turn around and call this guy misogynist, racist, homophobic, to me is inaccurate. Like, this is something that went to Sundance. This is a film that went to the Sundance Film Festival.
I mean, they're just, it's obvious. This is the harassment that they invoke on anyone who doesn't subscribe to their narrative. Right. And it's sickening. It really, it's beyond, like, they don't care. They don't care about what they're post about Stephen Greenstreet. They're just want to demonize him and make you not take him seriously.
To be fair, I fell for this for a little bit. I fell for this myself for a hot second. And then when you start looking into Stephen Greenstreet, yeah, exact same thing that happened to Keith Clore. Exact same thing. And when you talk to both of these guys, they're not the attacks that the cabal states they are. There's one story, I think I've shared this story on this channel before, but I ate dinner with Stephen Greenstreet. And it didn't hit me until a few days after we ate. And I feel bad because I wished I had helped him out in real time. But we went and ate Korean barbecue here in Los Angeles. And at Korean barbecue, it's a very different way to have dinner in a restaurant. You cook your own food. They bring meats out. It's a Korean restaurant, and at this restaurant they have chopsticks on the table. They don't put forks and spoons, or they put a spoon just in case you want an egg, but it's just chopsticks and a spoon. And I noticed about 3/4 of the way through dinner that Steven was having a hard time. He didn't know how to hold chopsticks. I wish I'd asked for a fork. I didn't want to address it because I didn't want to embarrass him, right? But the reason why I'm telling this story is not to embarrass him, but it hit me a few days after that. Shit, man. This guy's whole life, for the most part, especially up until early adulthood, he didn't know what the real world was. He wasn't exposed to it. So much so that he doesn't know how to use chopsticks. Like in the United States, I feel like using chopsticks, well, I wouldn't say most people, but I'm going to just throw a guess out there that a lot of folks have been exposed to that kind of food and culture and have learned over time how to use chopsticks because they live in normal circumstances where people go to sushi restaurants. Steven didn't have that. He never got that. He essentially, by self-admission, was living in a cult up until his early 20s. And so he's only really got to experience the world and all of its different opinions and different experiences and different people and different cultures and different ways to do things within only the last decade. It's not fair for you to hold mistakes that this guy maybe made in the past. And honestly, I've never seen actual proof that linked this to this person. But even if it is true, I'm willing to forgive, not forget, but forgive those actions because I've seen what the person has filmed and produced. I've broken bread with this person, and I've seen his body of work since those things were allegedly happened. And that's not the person I see in the work that he does. Am I wrong here?
No, yeah, I think you're totally hit the nail on the head. Yeah, people who look at what Stephen Greenstreet has done, and the only explanation they can have is, oh, he must be working for the State Department. He must be a propagandist. I mean, yeah, you make great points. I mean, and look at from my I don't have any experience being Mormon, but it makes perfect sense that someone raised as a Mormon in that kind of cultist society might see a lot of parallels to what's happening in the UFO community and feel it's his maybe even duty to speak out against things.
I can tell
it
you
makes
this.
a lot of sense. You don't need to be a state propagandist to be saying the things Stephen Greenstreet's saying.
I think you could see why this triggers him so much, and why for a long time he was responding to people as if I am that. We had this conversation at dinner. He told me straight up, you're going to be angry for a long time like I was. It's just going to take a while for you to work through it. I think I'm toward the end of it. And now I've figured out a way to turn that anger into a more positive thing, but it definitely fuels the way I think about this now and the way that I express myself about this now. Because again, like both Steven and I were in. We were in. We had the inside track. We were part of the team. You know, we were getting all of the interviews, all of the love, all of the clicks, all of the super chats, all of the likes, all of the things that came with being a popular UFO channel. It's fucking addicting. And then we saw really messed up shit and went, whoa, 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 and started calling it out. And the second you start calling it out, all of that feel good goes away. It's gone. It goes away. Like,
yes, it's
and it's only the only thing that's there is a thorn field. And it hurts walking through it, but by God, I'd rather walk through the thorn field than toe the line and spread disinformation or things that are sold as facts but are not factual at all. What do you want in your host? What do you want in your show? You know, like, it's up to you guys. Like, if you're here, thank you. If you're here, I think you get it. I think you get it. And the crowds are growing every show. Today we've got 116 people here. Like, it's hitting a tone. It's hitting something. People are finally, I think, starting to come to this side of the discussion, and they see everything that's going on. And I think people are reaching their wall. Will we get all of them? Obviously not. But I think it's important to have a show like this, to have conversations like this. And also, even with all of these opinions and all of these things that we've said, I want to be wrong. I want to look into the camera and say, I apologize, UFO Twitter. I fucked up. I got it wrong. I'd love for that day to come. Love for that day to come. And I apologize to everyone out there who I said was in a cult. You were right. I was wrong. I got duped again. I got duped twice. I would love to go back to that side because it's way more fun. Way more fun. But it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when you don't have the facts to go with the fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who just want to have their own beliefs and biases kind of confirmed, right? But then there are a lot of people who are actually find this interesting and want to know what's really going on. Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, it's hard to navigate these waters and know who's real, who's, full of BS, who's doing it for the clicks, and who's really cares about this stuff. And I think if you've watched, you and how this your channel has evolved, I think it'd be hard pressed for anyone to come out and say that you're doing it for the clicks or you're BSing people here.
No, definitely not BSing anybody. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I don't know who to trust anymore, especially after my last experience with the people that were talking to me and the people that I've called out. And you know who you are. I don't need to harp on it. I'm not King Milkfart. I'm not going to bury you into the ground for the next 7 months and talk about it every single stream. And I could call you out every fucking show. And sometimes I want to. But honestly, I'm not going to waste my time with you anymore. People know what you really are. And your show's not growing. Nobody's watching your shit. Because I think they see it. I think they see right through the bullshit. And so, yeah. Well, don't worry. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. But, okay, so that leads then rather, unless you wanted to say anything else about this panel. Oh, well, you know what? Before we get to this next part, can I play this? Because I think this is really important that came out of the panel. This was a really good story, and I just wanted to share this with everyone real quick.
And the environment that we fly in, space or, an atmospheric flight, very, very conducive to optical illusions. So I get it, why these pilots would look at that go fast video and think it was going really, really fast. I remember one time I was flying in the warning areas off of Virginia Beach, military operating area there. And my Rio thought, the guy that sits in the back of the Tomcat, was convinced we flew by a UFO. So I didn't see it. We turned around. We went to go look at it. It turns out it was Bart Simpson, a balloon. You know, oftentimes in space, I would see things and I was like, oh, that's really not behaving like it should. It doesn't have the trajectory of a satellite or a planet on the back of the star field. And every single time when I would look at it long enough, I would realize that it was atmospheric lensing. It was the fact that what I was looking at was actually flying behind the atmosphere, and because of variations in the atmosphere, it made the trajectory look like it wasn't going in a straight line. It was going like this, and it would go like that, and it would turn in the other direction. Was always the case. My brother, Mark Kelly, a former NASA astronaut, and also now a U.S. Senator, I was with him for dinner last night, and he shared a story with me again that he had shared years ago, but I had kind of forgotten about it, and I think it's worth sharing. And that is when he was the commander of STS-124, I think it was, in 2008, they were getting ready to close the payload bay doors of the space shuttle. And before they do that, you got to make sure nothing interferes with the doors, because if the doors don't close properly, the space shuttle can't re-enter the atmosphere. It would come apart. It's part of the structural integrity of the vehicle. So they see something in the payload bay, and they thought it was a tool, maybe a bolt. They couldn't quite figure it out. They were potentially going to have to go and do a spacewalk to retrieve it. But before they did that, my brother grabbed a camera, they took a picture of it, and when they blew up the picture, they realized that this is not a bolt or a tool in the payload bay. It was actually the International Space Station that was 80 miles away. I mean, that's just a really good example of how this environment we operate in is so conducive to optical illusions. Oftentimes, guys fly into the water. I mean, there are cases where, you know, pilots have rendezvoused on a buoy because they thought that was their wingman. It's just very, very challenging environment to work in, especially at night. And in my experience, the sensors kind of have the same issues as the people's eyeballs.
I mean, that's a former military pilot whose brother is a senator and former astronaut, telling you about two different, very strange optical illusions that at first glance and with not enough experience, you would think are UFOs or a bolt in the cargo hold, you know? And then when you take a closer look and you just pump the brakes, it turns out to be a Bart Simpson balloon.
Yeah, trained observers aren't superheroes. You know, they can have the same optical illusions and same pitfalls that all of us have.
They're not perfect at all, and I think this is the biggest part that I really got wrong. You know, and I think this is the biggest part that a lot of folks in this discussion are getting wrong, and it's why now it really underlines why Mick West does not take those things into account. He leaves out the eyewitness testimony. He leaves out the cockpit recording. He relies on the instruments, and even those aren't 100% reliable. As we learned with the camera that wasn't bolted down properly. You know, this is the US military. Trust me, they overlook shit all the time. There's wasteful spending. They make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them stupid. It doesn't make them unreliable. It's just, it cannot be taken to the bank as a fact. Just that one thing. It has to have sensors with it. It has to have another set of eyeballs to it. Not only next to them in the next plane, but maybe even on the ground. You know, like those are the ways that we really narrow it down. And when we do have all of those things, every time, especially Kirkpatrick underlines this so many times, every time those variables are in the equation, the problem is solvable. But when there's missing variables, it's hard to do the equation.
The
And
low
that's why
information zone.
low information zone. And that's why in the Big Phone Home 3, we really changed and focused on getting the data, getting the missing data, especially on the gimbal video. That one is the most controversial out of all of them because nobody knows how far away the object is from the plane. Nobody, not Mick West, not Marieke von Kloppenstedt, not anyone. Nobody knows the distance from the sensors to the plane. They're guesstimates. And that is a key piece of information. A key piece of information to determine, okay, what could this thing be? Because if it's 20 miles away, it's enormous. And now we're having a very cool, interesting conversation. But if it's a mile, 2 miles away, 3 miles away, 5 miles away, it's not as interesting. It seems like it's going to be just as mundane. It seems like it's going to work out the same way the Go Fast worked out. When you could do the math, you could figure out that the Go Fast is not that fast. It's actually pretty damn slow. We should change it to Go Slow and probably not use that video in news hits anymore when talking about the UFO topic. I don't know if there'll be a Big Phone Home 4. There's Mr. Rob G. Thanks for being here, though. So yeah. So let's move on to the next thing, and this is gonna be, I guess, the last thing we talk about here, and that is the crash retrieval program. The whole David Grush debrief, Leslie Kane, Ralph Blumenthal story that has absolutely destroyed the internet, and the whole world's talking about it. And tomorrow, the president of the United States is going to make a big presentation and tell the world that aliens are here and reverse engineered craft exist within the inventory somewhere in our military. Right? Rather, that's what's going to happen.
I heard that from a Mr. Ford. I don't know if it's totally accurate, but
yeah. Okay, so. And there's been a couple of interviews that are actually happening right now. So there's going to be even more stuff that we could dig into once we're done with this show in the next coming days, because I'm sure more news outlets are kind of picking it up. They're not the big ones yet. They haven't led the news with this story yet. I saw that this was really interesting. Let me go back to my bookmark tweets. But earlier today, Robert F. Kennedy, who's a presidential candidate, when I saw this morning, I'm like, oh, shit, this is going to blow up to be something really stupid. And it worried me because out of all the presidential candidates right now, Robert Kennedy is the one I'm actually genuinely looking at and going, oh, man, I think I like this guy. Because the number one thing on his platform is to reduce the size of foreign policy and our military spending overseas and wars that never end. The two cold wars that were basically started here under the Biden administration. So I like the idea that he wants to have less war. I think I love when any sort of presidential candidate that's the first thing they want to do, because clearly we've got a lot of other things that need attention. But when he tweeted this out this morning, I was like, I might have to reconsider my my support of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This is not looking good if he's sharing this debrief article. But funny enough, he deleted the tweet later today. He deleted the tweet. It's no longer on his profile. And I saw this from Richard Geldrick on Twitter. I don't know who this person is, but he says, RFK Jr. just deleted this post. Odd. Hashtag UFO Twitter. And then when you go to his page, Robert F. Kennedy, you see that it's no longer in his media, but when you scroll down, you find that, he had a tweet 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, 23 hours ago. So it should be somewhere after this. And it's not. It has, in fact, been deleted. I'm wondering why. I'm wondering if maybe folks at the Washington Post reached out and were like, hey, you might want to reconsider that retweet Here's why. I mean, what do you think happened? What are your guesses?
I mean, I don't know too much about RFK, but I think that he has some other weird kind of fringe beliefs too. So it's surprising to me that he would take this down, because I think he has much more controversial beliefs.
What are the other
than that
controversial
tweet.
beliefs that he has?
I'm not entirely sure. Isn't he like a COVID denier and all that?
No, I
shouldn't be
don't think
speaking
he's a
without totally
COVID
knowing, but,
denier. I look, I don't want to get into this conversation.
yeah,
I think his beef is the response to it. And once the facts have come in about it, why didn't we change the response to it? You know, like once we learned, okay, here's what it is. This is who it affects. Why we didn't change the societal things that we made big changes to. Anyway, like, I don't think he's a COVID denier, because if he was one of those, I definitely wouldn't be supporting him, or at least considering the support. But he's a Democrat that's pushing against a lot of the more left-leaning sort of ideologies of the Democratic Party. He's challenging them in a progressive way, but he's also distancing himself from the Trumpism of the Republican Party. So to me, he's right down the middle. I think if you haven't listened to him in a discussion longer than 15 minutes and you're making that decision, I would recommend go listen to him.
Yeah, I know literally nothing. I know maybe a headline or two.
Okay, so that's why. That's why. Again, like, we're not trying to make the show political, but I would say he's interesting, and he's saying things that most candidates aren't saying. And the COVID shit is honestly fourth and fifth on the list. The number one thing is ending the wars, the foreign wars, the healthcare system, veteran care, infrastructure. Like, those are the top things, and then all of those other things. But I mean, he's talking about reparations and, having genuine conversations to heal communities as opposed to dividing them. So
get behind that.
I mean, but then again, Colonel West just put his hat in for president of the United States, and I love Colonel West. So, my vote is still up in the air, Fred. There's plenty of time, but so far, those are the two candidates. If I was going to lean, I'd lean toward them. But my point is that he's a presidential candidate. He's one of the front runners as that is opposing President Biden, and he had this tweet and he took it down. And so he's clearly not as an extreme thinker as maybe some people think, because somebody got to him. A staffer must have heard, hey, the facts for this haven't come in yet. Be careful what you're sharing from an unknown news outlet, and I use that loosely.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the obviously, he probably saw some problems with the article, and I feel like we probably all see our own problems with the article. But I think the main problem with the article is that we expected this to be like 2 or 3 weeks ago published by the Washington Post, and
Right.
it wasn't. So we know that they tried to get it published to the Washington Post, and Ralph Blumenthal is posting now saying that, oh no, they didn't pass on it, they just just didn't want to do it right now, right?
Yeah, they didn't want to do it right now, and we were being.
They got passed. They said, Washington Post, publish it this weekend, or we're going to publish it somewhere else. And they said, we pass on it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the kind of mind games and kind of the Twitter, language battles they're trying to play there.
No, it is. It is a very much. Again, I'm especially now, like, paying attention to what people are saying and how they say it. I might have been blocked by. Let's see if I was. So funny if this guy blocked me. Because I thought I bookmarked. Okay, he didn't. But yeah, okay, so to be clear, the Washington Post did not pass on our UAP story. Leslie and I took it to the debrief because we were under growing pressure to publish it very quickly. Why? Who? That was my first question, is who's rushing you? Who is rushing you? Because I have a feeling the reason why they're being rushed is because that NASA panel had just come out, basically adding a huge dose of reality to the UFO medicine that has to go down people's throats. And so they took the sugar out of the spoon and basically was like, no, you got to take this medicine raw. And I mean, I don't know, that's just a guess, but what else would have them growing pressure to publish it very quickly? And why would you do that as journalists?
The other interesting theory that I heard was that they were afraid that Stephen Greer was going to unleash his name at his press conference on the 10th, so upcoming, which sounds
Oh.
maybe, Greer's posting about him now and trying to kind of take credit for this, which is kind of interesting.
He's trying to take credit for David Grush?
Yeah, he's saying that he's David Grush's mentor. And now people are posting on behalf of David Grush saying that that's complete bullshit. Stephen Greer's just tried
well, you saw yesterday
ponytail onto his thing.
You saw yesterday that Brian Bender said that David Grush was groomed by Lou Elizondo.
Well, so yeah, and so the first reading I had of this article, I was like, oh man, this is awesome, right? Yeah. Then I read it again, and it's a little bit weirder, right? Like my first impression was he was working on this program. He was part of this program that he's whistleblowing. That's not the case. He was part of the UAP task force who had some documents that apparently totally convinced him that this is all true based on these documents. It's just so weird, it's not, and so if he was part of the UAPTF, how come the preliminary report or none of this came out of the UAPF's reporting? How come, Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor, how come they weren't telling us about this if it was already uncovered by the UAPTF? It just, God, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense. It almost feels like a high noon drop that they've been hiding or just waiting to just sitting on and to use for the perfect moment. And this perfect moment is, well, let's combat this NASA reality and then maybe also beat Stephen Greenstreet to the punch at the same time, kind of kill two birds with one stone and get all the credit for this David Grush thing. Because I could tell you, News Nation was not the first place they wanted to tell this story. There were other news outlets that they were waiting to hear from, and News Nation was the only one who said, okay, we'll do it. And it's
well,
also doesn't say a lot that Ross Coulthart is now a commentator for News Nation. News Nation also is owned by the same company that owns the George Knapp television station, and I believe also the same company that runs their podcasts, or I heard something like that. So like there's all sorts of weird connections to News Nation and the people telling the story. And it's, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that part of it?
Well, that is weird. Like the other big question that I have is like, okay, so why is it Rush? But also, why are they reporting it now? Why does Gersh want to come out now? If I was Gersh, I would wait till the IG investigation was done, wait until Congress verified what I told them, so that I could come out and be the savior, be like, hey, here's the UFO stuff. I'm impeccable, they found it, and
well, here's the question.
He's already waited like a couple of years, right? It was his 2019 when he got in touch with these guys. So
maybe even earlier, because again, like there's production videos of Lou Elizondo telling this story to other people, production people, like not military people, like just everyday folks. And that's why I'm like, wait a second, is this fucking program classified or not? And why are we allowed to talk about it like this? That's confusing to me. Like, that's the confusing part, is like, oh, we gave sworn testimony of classified things, but we just told you what we gave sworn testimony about.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? If this isn't classified, if ET and alien bodies, ET craft and alien bodies isn't classified, then why are you doing an IG report? What's stopping you from telling Congress what's happening here?
Right. And also, like, if you're getting away with it on list level, why not take a couple of documents or a photo or something? Like,
I mean, on the, there's a lot of reasons to be very skeptical and kind of treat this as kind of like a really weird non-story. But the other aspect is, this is pretty kind of cool. He's saying that he's told Congress, told Errol the names, the people. No. So if there's, this is kind of the put up or shut up moment, right?
It has to be.
We'll either hear that, yes, this is true, or what's probably going to happen is that it's BS, and then people aren't going to accept that, and it's going to be another Bob Lazar thing.
So there's a couple of things. First is the whistleblower protection. What is that protection say when the whistleblower is lying? What if they're found to be lying? Is there any punishment for that whistleblower for lying and wasting time and taxpayer dollars? Or do they just get to lie and get away with it? Because I have a feeling they're going to be able to walk. I have a feeling.
You know, they do the IG stuff. That's under that. They do that under threat of perjury. So if he's lying, you know, there is, you know, that protection. But I don't think he's lying. I really don't think he's lying. I think that this sounds like the same kind of stuff that Eric Weinstein was being, you know,
told about,
confronted with. Yeah. People promise him this crazy evidence. They maybe even show them some documents, but whenever it gets to actually seeing the stuff or the rubber hits the road, then
the meeting gets canceled.
There's a dust trail.
The meeting gets canceled, and all of a sudden nobody wants to talk anymore. But here's the thing: if it is true, and he gave 11 hours of testimony, he gave that testimony to a committee that Senator Gillibrand is sitting on. So why isn't Senator Gillibrand coming out and saying, this guy is being honest, this guy's being true, we've looked into it, we've heard we're looking further into it? But that doesn't happen. Not one lawmaker that has been a big advocate has come out and backed this story. That's number one. Number two, what was number two? I just totally forgot number two.
But you know, maybe they don't want to do that number one because it's an ongoing investigation. And maybe that's why they're coming out now. It's because they know people aren't going to comment on it because it's, you know, no one wants to you know, get in the cross paths of an IG investigation.
Maybe, but I mean, damn, like for a person who advocates for veterans the way she does, why would she leave one out there flapping in the wind like this? Because all it takes is for Senator Gillibrand to come out and go, you know what? We've heard the 11 hours of testimony. I know there's a lot of things being said about David Grush. We find him credible. We're looking into the claims that he's making. So far, we're encouraged. That was the second thing I was going to say. If that's the case, she hasn't done that. The second thing is that the Aero Department and the Department of Defense through Susan Goff has put out a statement saying, Aero has not found any of these programs. There is no proof in the past or right now that these programs are happening. And maybe they're lying. Maybe somebody's lying here. That's for sure.
I don't know if anyone is lying. I don't think anyone necessarily is lying.
Well, I guess I don't know, man. Just the way his interview last night didn't convince me that he was scared of any repercussions whatsoever. So maybe because he's telling the truth, maybe what he saw was actually high, you know, futuristic black tech, and somebody told him it was alien spacecraft, and he thinks that it is really alien spacecraft, and he reports that to other people, and so he genuinely believes maybe that is the case. But
yeah, I mean, it seems to me kind of like that whole, like the Facebook or the Meta person who was convinced that the AI was, you know, sentient and a real thing, right? And I think he was, you know, totally, you know, he believed that, but he was wrong. And I think that's kind of the same with this guy. You know, he's probably had people like Elizondo kind of, you know, tell him, you know, what's happening behind the scenes. So he's probably convinced that whatever he saw was legitimate. And I think we need to wait for another set of eyes and set of independent eyes from Aero or Congress to look at it themselves and kind of tell us our guidance. And I think that, you know, the whole Aero thing with, you know, the statement that they said, you know, I feel like we should give them time. You know, Aero might not have the Title 50 you know, authority to go dig into stuff. That might be true. So let's give them time to see if this can be confirmed or not.
I mean, we have to give him time, right? Because we gave him time on everything else, you know? And again, like we said this, even when we were pro narrative or whatever, it was just like, look, whatever this conglomeration of scientists say, we have to accept it, right? Like, because this is what we were asking for. This is the confirmation we all wanted. And when they give us the results, if they don't match what we believe, we're going to have to really start questioning ourselves and look in the mirror and go, okay, who's wrong here? And I think it would be the person looking in the mirror, not the scientists who are independently looking at this and they don't have an emotional involvement like Gary Nolan or like me even, you know, or like maybe you, if you've had an experience. So it's just, I mean, this guy was on the UAP task force. The way it sounds, you know, because they talk about high-level defense officials, that sounds like Christopher Mellon. When he says that people told him about these programs that he didn't know existed, he's talking about ATIP and the UAPTF. And UAPTF was comprised from 2019 to 2021 is when he was on there. Who else was on the UAPTF at that time? You know, Travis Taylor, Gary Nolan, Christopher Mellon, like all of these same cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, you know, 2017 narrative guys. And we hear that him and Elizondo are really good buddies. Elizondo clearly had this story 2 years ago and was telling people confidently that this is coming one day. Matt Ford knew it. Joe Mergia knew it. They were all warning us soon. And this is what we get?
Yeah. You know, it's disappointing, isn't it? You know, they made it seem like there was going to be a revelation that was going to, you know,
change the world,
be a de facto, change the conversation,
change the world.
Yeah, maybe kind of, yeah. And it, yeah,
I mean,
it's another hurry up and wait. You know, it's another kicking the can down the road until this is verified. But on the other hand, you know, I don't want to be too negative because I think it does get us closer to either confirming this stuff or confirming that it doesn't exist, right? I think that we're getting closer towards, you know, being able to, you know, say that, you know, Lou Elizondo and these TTSA people were wrong or they are right. And I think that I want them to be right, but I think that they're going to be proven wrong.
Yeah, this is hilarious, dude. Okay, so look at this. Professional.
I was going to say,
what?
Well, like you talked about, you know, the interview, and I don't know if you looked at his body language or not at all. I saw someone posting in here that the body language experts did a video on him. I'd love to see that, but I saw some posted by artists. Yeah, apparently I saw it posted by Artisan Tony, who says that he thinks that the body language is all wrong. And one of the interesting things that I saw is that if you notice on that question about alien bodies, when they ask him about alien bodies, and he says, yes, there's alien bodies.
Yeah.
But he's shaking his head.
No. Yeah.
That's like
no,
one of the body language experts.
Dude,
that's like the classic thing, right?
Look, I'm no body language expert, but when you look at Edward Snowden or Julian Assange talk about the secret information that they know and the things that they've done, they don't have a fucking smile on their face. Like their lives have been ruined by sharing this information, but they're compelled by a human duty to report these atrocities in some cases to the people. And whether you like him or not, like we all had the feeling that the NSA and the government was spying on its citizens, but we had no clue to what extent until Edward Snowden came out and told us. And in my opinion, he should be looked at as an American hero, not someone who broke the law. I don't care how he did it. Don't give a shit. Yes, maybe he could have done it better. Maybe he could have done it through different channels. But when you're that scared and the information is that important, I don't trust any American president that or nominee that wants to put that person in prison for the rest of his life. It doesn't make any sense. But I mean, here's a picture of Stanford Better a couple of days ago saying professional debunkers, not skeptics, will have their world turned upside down soon. This is June 4th. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like with a big sign that says debunker. You know, in the coming days, ask yourself, why would someone spend an obscene amount of time and energy to debunk something and discredit people? What is their motivation? Dollar signs? Money? Like Stephen Greenstreet
it's been hard. These last couple of days have been rough, Lou. It's been rough coming up with these debunking theories.
Has it been rough? We've been raking the cash in from these debunking shows. Like, I mean, the checks are so good. The checks are so good. Fucking stupid, man. What an idiot. You know, like just really.
I mean, I really don't know what to make of this. Is it projection? Is it just like, what does he really believe that? Like, it's so weird.
I don't know, man. He's such a mystery. But it's not, honestly, I don't think it's that much of a mystery. I think he was probably very similar to me. You know, he's in Hollywood. He's a lighting guy. He has enough time and enough money to devote into this topic. He first started as a political action committee and started seeing this interesting conversation happening around the topic of UFOs. It was like, oh, well, maybe we can hop into that in a little bit. Saw when he did, and it was a positive message that he got more views, more eyeballs, more clicks, more attention. And then he's like, okay, I got it. I know what to do now.
Yeah.
And here we are, you know, and he's bought hook, line, and sinker. He's not thinking clearly when he's listening to these folks.
Yeah, it just makes it so clear that like it's not even worth engaging or discussing with these people. You know, like when you talk to someone, you know, normally people try to like understand who they're having an argument against and like try to, you know, put yourself into the other person's position. I mean, if this is really what they think when they try to put themselves into the skeptic mind, is that, you know, that they think that they're being paid, and like there's not going to be understanding. Like there's not even an effort.
Well, I just love, and I think sometimes when he says stuff like, you know, why would somebody spend all this time like hating on this? Like, what would you do if one of your friends stabbed you in the back, pulled out the knife, yelled murder, right? Then gave you the knife and said, tell everybody you did it. Like, what would you do? How would you react? Like, how do you?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just, you know, a stunning amount of, you know, just not making any sense. I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, he put out here the other day, NASA does not know the origin of hashtag UFOs. They don't know the origin, but Matt Ford knows the origin. The origin of UAP remains unclear. David Spergel, chair, NASA UAP Independent Study Team president. Hashtag NASA Space Science, UFO Twitter, UAP Twitter, Republicans, Democrats. He's like so pissed off when the chair of NASA is like, yeah, we don't know the origin of UAP remains unclear. And
I don't think he's pissed off about it. I think that he's championing that, isn't he?
Well, he's saying he doesn't know sometimes where these things come from, and that's a fair statement, but not because they're alien, but because they just don't have enough data on it yet. But according to Matt Ford is like, yeah, we do know what the origins of UAP are, motherfucker, and you better start telling people. Like, we know they're coming from the ocean. They're coming from Zeta Reticuli. They're coming from out there. They're aliens, man. Get with it, chairman of NASA. You know, like, get with it. Get with it, guy. Like, he knows better than the NASA panel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's I'm sure Elizondo's telling him all sorts of stuff, maybe.
Dude, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. There was one other thing here I wanted to highlight that is well, you almost got to get out of here. You know what?
Yeah, I got it.
I recommend everybody. Jeremy McGowan put out a really wonderful post about asymmetric warfare and the use of a narrative like this and how it might be implemented and what are the pros and the cons. And he's gotten a lot of traction on this this article, so I highly recommend everybody checking it out. But real quickly, he does sort of break this down into a few things, and they are psychological warfare, diversion of resources, technological intimidation, espionage and intelligence gathering, scientific misdirection, influencing public opinion, use of propaganda, strengthening the defense alliances. These are all the reasons why you would create a new UFO narrative, and explains how and why this kind of psychological warfare could be used primarily to make our enemies think that we're developing something otherworldly when we're not. And so hopefully they'll start spending a whole bunch of their budget into stuff that doesn't exist, you know? There's just it's essentially an article about misdirection and why this misdirection and how this misdirection would work. And the UAP discussion and this David Grush discussion, how that could be, you know, the perfect smokescreen for asymmetric warfare. And so You know, that's why you have maybe a shit-eating grin on this guy's face when they're talking about this, because they know that there's going to be no consequences. There might be a public slap on the wrist, but I don't think they put a guy like this in prison for perjury. For what he says, oh, I just mistook it, but I thought I was telling the truth. You know, like, I mean, I testified.
I was telling the truth, but I was wrong.
I was telling the truth, but I was wrong. You know, like, I hope if that's the case, if that is the case, I hope that they make him come out and do a public statement saying to everyone that's the case. And if you don't, then there's going to be legal repercussions. But he went into this with a lawyer. So we'll see what happens. All right. Right. You're right. This is cool, but there's a lot of red flags, and this is not definite on anything. There's no answer. There's no proof. There's no smoking gun here, and this hasn't changed the world. And this isn't a fucking touchdown dance on the grave of debunkers. And that's not what this is.
Anyone who's interested in this and anyone who's, you know, following this story, I think they should commit to accepting whatever, you know, Congress and Arrow says, you know, a year from now about this, right? If they're not willing to do that, which I think a lot of them won't be willing to, then
they won't.
Then why are we even talking about it?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is Arrow and this NASA study, this will be our Project Blue Book. And we won't hear about this for another 70 years until they've got to use a smokescreen to cover up some other new fancy toy or whatever the hell it is they're doing with this narrative, because it's not aliens coming here.
Right. You know, every day is a new possibility for aliens coming. So maybe in another 70 years, they'll be here.
Who knows? Who knows? Rather be Squdding, my man. Thank you so much for hanging out for a full 2-hour show. This was a lot of fun.
Definitely
tell the people. I know you already showed your app, your Squid Vision. Squid Vision Pro is coming soon.
Subscribe to Rather Be Squdding to see what this is all about. It's available soon.
I love that it has a cord just like the Apple Vision. And I hope it goes to a battery that fits right in your pocket. You can just be mobile with your Squid Vision. I love it.
Yep.
I love it, man. What a maniac. Rather Be Squdding. Right. I love you to death, man. Dude, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
Good talking.
All right, brother. Peace. You guys, that was a squid. God, I love that guy to death. That was just a lot of fun. Go to his channel. I'm going to include the link to Rather's channel after the show in the description below. Go check out Rather Be Squdding's channel. Whatever the hell he's working on with his Rather Vision or his Squid Vision. I can't wait. What a hilarious dude. And what a wonderful thinker, right? Like the dude, I love when he's here because he's always, he's always helping me, stay grounded and stay logical. Gotta love that about Rather Be Squdding. Let's see here. What do we got? Why is this not playing? We'll play some music. Oh, that's why. There we go. You guys, that was a hell of a lot of fun. If there is a body language expert video, when I get off live tonight, I'm going to go find it. And if it exists, we'll do another stream maybe tomorrow or the next day. Because we should watch that together. I think that'll be very, very interesting. Let's see here. What else? Other than that, I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff coming out here about this Dave Grush story. So whatever comes out, guys, we're going to try and keep up to date with it. Whatever new updates come out, stay tuned here. Ring the bell. Make sure you guys are subscribed. That way, when something big does happen, you'll get alerted for a video that won't start, but the second live stream will. So you got that to look forward to until Restream figures out this streaming issue I have. Unreal. But you guys, thank you for the patience. Thank you so much for being here. Before I get out of here, let's see. I just want to say what's up to everyone in the chat that I missed out earlier. Matthew Riot, thank you for being here, my friend. Always good to see your face here. Eventide, thank you for being here. Zamog, thank you for being here. Let's see here. Pat Calabria was the first one, I think, in the chat. Thanks for being here, brother. Steve Long. You said, I saw this. I didn't miss it, Matt, but we have to do an interview with Steve Long. Let's get this done. Let's have Steve Long on the show. I'm dying to talk to him. Yeah, almost any time. I've got so many people that want to talk to me, and I've been kind of like a little flaky with it, just because, man, I there's just a lot of shit going on in my life right now, but the priority is me. If I can't put myself first before some of these requests, I just don't, it's not that I won't do it. It's just, I'm going to put it off until I have time to do it or reach back out to you. So please don't take that the wrong way. If you reach out to me to have a discussion on this show, I'm still interested or want to make that happen, but there's so much going on right now. I'm going to Austin this month. If you're in the Austin area, we're going to be doing the Austin Sketch Festival with my sketch team out here from the UCB. So that's going to be great. We just got renewed for another year at Upright Citizens Brigade, so we've got a whole year of shows coming here in Los Angeles. So if you're ever in the Los Angeles area, hit me up. Try and get you some tickets. If I can't get you tickets, they're not that expensive. And definitely worth coming to. So if you ever want to see me perform live and what I'm actually good at, let me know, and we'll set that up. And I think that's it, you guys. Love you all. Most of you. Matt Finley, what's shaking? Thank you for being here. Brian Morgan, what's shaking? Thank you for being here. Yiddish Doom. That's a great name. Yiddish Doom. Thank you for being here. Did I miss any? Let me just go ahead and check this real quick. I want to make sure I didn't miss any new subscribers to Twitch. And let's shout them out real quick. I actually want to also shout out my Patreon members. I meant to do that today. So, Dead Bluebird X, thank you so much for the follow. I truly appreciate it. And I know we said hello to Dead is Lying yesterday, so thank you again. And again, when you guys subscribe here on Twitch, you get this cool little GIF. So subscribe just for that. That's fun. Thank you. It's is Lying for the sub. Let's see here. What did I just open? I got lost. Oh, let's see here. Let me find my Patreons, man. Let me find my Patreons, man. Alright, so we got 16 patrons in our Patreon. So, guys, if you haven't signed up for Patreon, please do. Let's see if we can get up to 20 by the end of June. That'd be sick if we can get 20 Patreon supporters. But let me give a quick shout out to all my Patreons: Mace Wan, Nikolai, Mostly Space, Bricktop, Jason Ladd, Haley Fitzgerald McQueen, John Grunwell, Zach Vajda, Aeronaut, Tommy McAllister, Jersh, John Lucas, John Wilkerson, Matt M, TD, David Ford, Jamie, Leia J, Crystal Caffrey, Melissa Strobel, Chris Gonzalez, Ronan Carmel, Christy Sanders, Alex Sakaris, Gordon Steinberg, Michael Hadam, Becky Baines, Grandmaster UV, The Pagely Wave, Nathan Camarillo. I think all of these are still right. I don't know. Are these all my active ones? Active. Nope, those are definitely not all my active ones. Here we go. Here are my active ones. George, Matt M, Alex Sakaris, Michael Hadam, Theodore Hopwood, Colbert Gilbert, Jack Fitzsimmons, Kenny Campbell, Matthew Riot, who's in the show. Thank you so much for being here. Jimmy Singer, Filippo Vanucci, Jean-Francois Chalabois, my sister, my dad, Gerald Greenwood, and Michael Mataluni. Thank you all so much for contributing to the show in the ways that you do. It helps tremendously. Let's see if we can get to 20 Patrons by the end of the month. That's a great goal. Guys, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about the show. The show's growing. We're growing again, and we're growing in a new, I think, more fun way. This is a way I kind of get to use my roasting skills and be the heel in this ufology wrestle match, cage match, whatever this is, this WWE of ufology. I'm okay with being the heel, baby. So if you want some grounded information and you want to laugh, stick to this channel. I promise there's a ton more coming. You guys have a great rest of your week if I don't see you. Till next time, peace.